Hello, friends from all over the world. This is DeeDee Catron, and I'm very excited to be here with you today for AALL Creates International Tournament of Art and Crafts. So I am in the first group that gets to challenge you, and our group this week is Europe. So we are challenging you to create a project, whether it's mixed media, arts and crafts, scrapbooking, mini albums, whatever really makes you happy, altered canvases, whatever. And we're inspiring you to create something that is Europe themed. So we have quite a few themes going for Europe, and you could do any of them. You could do all of them. You could do a few of them. Just really whatever speaks to you. And we have our challenge is called the face of printmaking. So anything that has a face in it, anything printmaking based. We have the color blue going on. We have texture. Use some texture that reminds us of like vintage and just old like historical buildings, things like that. So make sure you read up on the rules. I am doing a little pamphlet here, and it's a 3-piece pamphlet, like a 3-page pamphlet. I have taken 3 4x6 index cards, and I have bound them together with some tape. And then when I bound them together, one of my tips and tricks and hints is that you leave a little gap between the cards in the masking tape, and then when you bend it, when you crease your binding, then the paper doesn't crunch up together, and it ends up really, really awesome, and it folds nicely, it opens nicely, and all that happens just by leaving a little gap between the cards. So I laid the tape down, and then I put my cards on top, and then I wrapped the tape all the way around, and that made sure that my binding was really secure. Then when I covered it in gesso, I did probably 4 layers of gesso on each side just to make sure that there was really good coverage and that it was strong, because index cards are not that strong. So you could always start your pamphlet with something else if you don't like that. Like you could do cardstock or even like really thick chipboard. With the thicker your material gets though, just make sure that the gap you leave between your little cards, your pamphlet pages, is a little bit thicker so that it can compensate. And so then I did my gesso, and I did do a really thin layer of like a Titan buff color of acrylic paint, but you don't need that. I wasn't exactly sure where I was going at that point. I just knew that I wanted to do a little pamphlet. And then I decided that I actually wanted to collage on this piece. So I got out a bunch of vintage texts. I have like an old prescription there. I have some things from an atlas. I have old tickets. I have library stubs. There is music note, and then I even have some like Ukrainian text, and I meant to pull out my Italian text as well and put that in here, but I forgot. I have a lot of really cool text, so it's all right that that kind of stuff happens. I'm just going back and forth and collaging here now. You can use any medium you like to collage, whatever makes you happy. There are a lot of products out there that will work. A lot of people like Mod Podge. There's Collage Podge. You can use any type of acrylic medium, whether it's matte finish or gloss finish. You can use fluids. You can use heavier mediums. Like in my case, I'm using a heavy matte gel medium, and I just added some water to it to help me add some fluidity and let it soak into that paper. So I put some medium down, and then I put my book text or my whatever, my piece of paper down, and then I put more medium down. So when you're wet collaging, essentially you're creating an envelope all the way around all the pieces and creating this really like thick, cohesive layer. It's really nice. I love it, and I love collaging. And you can do all kinds of collaging. You can do colors, you can do magazine pieces. I mean, it doesn't have to be just vintage book text. And you can incorporate like scrapbook papers and all kinds of things. So definitely, if you're going to collage, like, the sky's the limit. Collage anything you can find, like candy wrappers, like just whatever makes you happy. And in this case, if you're going to collage for the AALL Create International Tournament, than whatever reminds you of Europe. Yeah, if you had like old Paris maps or, you know, that would be really cool. Map pieces, anything you have. Collaging is really fun, and as long as your medium soaks through the paper or creates a nice sturdy envelope around it, you'll be good to go. I did heat the other side when it was dry, and then I trimmed it. So you saw me trim it. That is important because if you don't trim it, then you won't have your nice pretty edges. And then I did the other side, so the inside I did, and I did the same thing. I trimmed it down after it was dry, and then I added some masking tape just to sort of strengthen up some areas maybe, and I specifically left some white areas open, and you'll see why. It's very cool. It's masking tape has a really great texture, but the open white areas will give me an opportunity to do some really cool mark making in a little bit. So keep things like that in mind too. Like a nice stark white area is going to offer different opportunities than a covered book text area. I am now scraping some gesso. This is the same gesso that I used before. It's Liquitex Professional Gesso. And I'm just using the back of a palette knife to really pick up the texture, and this is helping me create like a cohesive piece. If you have watched any of my videos in the past, then you'll know that I call gesso the great equalizer. When I'm collaging and like things are sort of like this page right here, things kind of look a little splotchy and there's like all these funny different shades all over, but when I start adding in the gesso, it really helps everything blend together a little bit better. But if I keep the gesso at a minimum and not cover the entire thing, then I don't really lose any of the integrity of the really cool pieces that I've used to collage. I'm going in with a Stabilo now, and I'm just sort of creating some grunginess. Because I did the wet collage version of collaging, I did the wet version of collaging, there is a sealant over the top of my papers. So this Stabilo isn't going to soak into the paper, but it kind of sits on top and it gets a little gritty and grungy, and it's actually very cool. As long as you let it dry, or you even help it along with a heat gun and it kind of dries in little pools, then it's just grungy and distressed and very, very cool. It's a little bit different than if you were to collage like in a dry way with a glue stick, because if you collage with a glue stick, then that Stabilo can still soak into the top of that paper where the porous paper fibers are still on the surface. It's a little bit different, but still both are very cool. I did scrape some archival ink kind of around the piece just to add to that grunginess a little bit, but I was very light-handed with it, and it just added like one more layer of texture. You can see it really well in the close-up detail shots. Now this stamp is from Viva Las Vegas Stamps. This is one of my favorite stamps I've ever designed. It's like a little art journaling stamp that I used in all kinds of mixed media pieces, and I stamped it in an uneven number, very specifically in 3, and then 2 of them are going off the page too. So just some kind of design details. Then I did some scribbling, and I even brought in the Dina Wakley Scribble stick in Night. She calls it Night. It's kind of like a Payne's gray. But when I added the water, for me it got a little too blue, and I kind of wanted it to just be this little hint. So I wiped that part off and then made sure everything was dry, and I came back in with that Scribble stick again. So I'm scribbling so far with a Scribble stick, and I have scribbled with the Stabilo Marks All, and now I'm going to do some mark making with my Sharpie paint pen. And in this, right here in this case, I'm just doing some dots all over, and now I'm adding in some plus signs. And because I'm mark making with the white paint pen, I am keeping in mind that it's going to show up really, really well on those intense, like vintage book texts that have a lot of age to them, like that one there specifically. It's very, very dark, and so the white marks are going to look really beautiful on top of it. And they do, I can't lie. It's really, really cool. It looks wonderful. It's very aesthetically pleasing. So that's more like, I guess I could say a design tip. Your whites are going to look really good on like mid-range tones and darker tones, where your blacks are going to look really good on white tones. Now that Death Head Moth was also a Viva Las Vegas stamp, and at this point I'm kind of thinking I'm going to use it on the front, but I end up not using it at all. So kind of ignore him for now. I'm using another Stabilo Marks All, where before I used a black one. This one is a graphite colored Stabilo Marks All, and I'm using it to trace the pattern in this Unwild Studio stencil. And this is one of my favorite Unwild Studio stencils ever. It's the wheat stencil, and it creates such a beautiful pattern. So right now I'm just tracing the basic shape of these like little wheat stalks, and I have them coming down from the top on what is going to be the cover of my piece. Oh, and I almost forgot. So I did go away for a minute. I never bring my sewing machine on camera because it's so big and bulky, and you lug it around or you move the camera, and it's just kind of annoying. But all I did was stitch all the way around the pamphlet. So I did not stitch the individual pages, but just the outside shape. And then I sewed on a little flap of, or a little piece of muslin that is the handle. That is now like the little like tab that you can open the pamphlet very easily with. Then I did my I'm so sorry. Then I did my stenciling, and now I've come back with the graphite pencil and kind of sketched up that stencil, and I used the white Sharpie to outline all of those wheat stalks on the stencil. Now I'm back to the Stabilo Marks All that's black instead of graphite, and I'm filling in all those stark white areas with these really cool little like just weird kind of polka dots. They're not even polka dots. They're more like long, almost like hatch marks or something, but they're really cool. They're distressed. They're different. And because I'm using the Stabilo Marks All, they have this grungy grittiness to them. And it's not quite waxy, even though I think this pencil does have a little bit of wax in it, but it's just really, really gritty, and it's very cool. Every once in a while, I need to make sure that my creases are staying nice and creased because I'm adding all these layers on top of them. So I just recrease them. I could use a bone folder or anything like that, but I just use the back of a spoon in this case, a vintage spoon. And then I have this super, super, super beautiful, lovely face. This vintage photo is going to be the face of my project. So I have, it's going to be an image transfer. So I put down some gel medium on my base, and then I put some gel medium on my image, and then I burnished it together. So I really want to burnish really well because I want really great contact so that when I start peeling up the paper, then the image stays down 100% and just the paper comes up. So I helped it along by heat drying it, and then I did let it sit there for a little while because it's important that the medium, the gel medium, is 100% dry. Otherwise, when you start to rub your finger across it, it will pull up in areas. And I do get a little rough with this one, and I was a tiny bit upset at first. I'm not going to lie. I end up pulling up part of her nose, and I was really, really upset. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But actually, in the end, it really helped push my piece a little bit further forward. So I'm trying to keep in mind all the requirements for this piece. Fibers is one of them, and so I used the muslin, and I did some stitching. And the blue, I incorporated the blue with my Scribble stick. My face is coming from this nurse's face, and then also from the sentiment that I put on. The texture, I have lots and lots of lovely texture happening with all my different layers. Now that I'm done with my image transfer, I'm going to come back in with the Stabilo Marks All that's black, and I'm going to fill in some of the pieces that I've sort of lost during my image transfer, and also I'm just going to help beef her up a little bit. So I draw in her clothes and draw in her face a little bit. I'm going to amplify her shadows and her hair because her hair was really lovely, and I lost a little bit of it up in the left-hand corner. And I just want to make her shadows really dark, and what this is doing is it's helping her pop off the page because she is the main focus of this little pamphlet. And really, I'm just like having a lot of fun. I'm mark making, I'm making texture, I'm doing all my favorite things. So I think that really helps this pamphlet come alive as well, because I know these are the things I love. So I know they're gonna look good. So yes, I did color in her face a little bit, and I still was not incredibly happy with that. So just keep kind of working it until I find a good solution for me that makes me happy, but also doesn't really like lose her, because that's important as well. I put a little golden acrylic paint, golden fluid acrylic, in a cup and added some water so that I could do some permanent black splatters. The thing to remember about all the Stabilo stick and Marks All, the Dina Wakley Scribble sticks and the Stabilo Marks All, is that they're not permanent. So at the very end, I will fix my piece with a workable fixative so that everything does get permanent and it can be handled. Okay, so here's the part I talked about where at first I was upset that I messed up her face, but then I ended up fixing it. I found some words and out of some vintage book text, and it says "turn and face the strange," which is a line from the song "Changes" by David Bowie, who is European based. So there's one more kind of jab at our theme. I'm a big David Bowie fan, so getting back out my white Sharpie paint pen because it's really beautiful and it does some really amazing things. And I did some handwriting on the right hand corner. I finished off the lyrics, and then now I am where I like extended the shadow on the right hand side, because now this is upside down. On the left hand side, I am doing more of that really cool stippling, and it's insane how much it helps her stand out. It's very cool. So it's kind of like the light is shining from behind her, and it's very pretty. I'm making some more marks. Now this one also with the Stabilo Marks All in the graphite color. There was this big kind of open area of white there, and I was trying to decide what to do, and then I thought, well, why don't I just put some lines in there? And it's very cool, and it's a really easy mark to make. And things are coming to a close here, ending up really well. I am mimicking that same sort of stippling or like kind of hatching. It's not cross hatching, but they're also not polka dots. I don't know what to call them, but they're very cool. So I'm mimicking those on the inside in just the areas where the white is really showing through all by itself. And that's the white gesso. That's just the gessoed card that's showing through. And that's the end. So now here's a little bit slower video. You can see all of the pretty pieces, the finished pamphlet. This is the front cover, and then that was the back. It opens up. This is what you see. Now I could easily add like some pockets and different things to this, but it's so fun, and I really, really love how it turned out. It's just kind of grungy and vintage and distressed, and it was really fun. So join the tournament. Very excited to see you guys here. You can find me on any social media. Search DeeDee Catron. I'm on Instagram and Pinterest and Facebook and YouTube. I have a ton of free videos. Join the tournament, see what else is coming up. It's really exciting. There are lots of prizes, and we're really glad to have you guys playing along. Thank you so much to Ab and the team at All and Create for inviting me, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. Bye.